We're going to talk about autism in the media for a little while. Sound good? Also, hello, and happy Autism Awareness Month. My name is Frieren Real Slow, and I have autism spectrum disorder, depression, and ADHD. They make for the most stable combination. My life is a comedy. So originally, I wanted to make a much larger video on autistic representation as a whole, but I've been struggling with my mental health lately, and that feels a little beyond me at the moment. So instead, I've decided to talk about autistic headcanons and why they're important. This is my compromise with myself, because while I really want to do something for Autism Awareness Month, and I think it's really important, I'm just not in a place where I can make something bigger right now. Hopefully next year I can do a proper video essay. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy my smaller video on autism in the media and what it means to me and why it's so important. So I come from a family with a bit of a history of autism. My brother was diagnosed with ASD at a young age, my cousin is nonverbal, and I was diagnosed officially in college, and we're pretty sure my dad is undiagnosed. Autism has been a huge part of my life for as long as I can remember, but it was something I only ever really knew from first-hand experience. That is to say, it's not something that I ever heard talked about or saw represented in media growing up. Autism is still a relatively new term, and it's not something that's very well understood within the general population. However, a lot of people still have a very strong idea of what autism actually is, and that tends to be a sort of singular appearance, that of a childlike struggling person with specific needs and deficiencies. And I think this closed-minded idea of autism ends up hurting very real autistic people, because it leads to, as weird as it sounds, a sort of autistic ideal, a singular way of being autistic that people will accept. Autism is a vast spectrum, and it's something that people struggle to fully define because of how varied it is. Autistic people can be low empathy or have abnormally high empathy, they can be non-verbal or constantly talk and ever in between. And I think the problem with autistic representation is that it's often expected that a single autistic character can be a stand-in for all autistic people, like Sam Gardner from Atypical. It's actually something of a well-known joke in the online autistic community that when writers try to write an autistic person, they will always suck. But when they try to make someone a little quirky, they accidentally make the best representation you'll find anywhere. Like how music was practically just a well-intentioned hate crime, or how the actor and possibly the writers for The Good Doctor sought advice from Autism Speaks for portraying the titular doctor, which... Okay, in all seriousness, fuck Autism Speaks. These people pretend they know what's best for us, but their only goal is to speak over us and treat us like children. Their use of the puzzle piece is telling because they see us as fundamentally incomplete and broken, but we're not broken. Please, if you take one thing from this video, let it be this: never, ever give Autism Speaks your money. Anyway, obviously it's not true that all canonically autistic characters are done really badly. The siblings from Everything's Gonna Be Okay are really well done, as is Norma Khan from Dead End Paranormal Park. There are a good few actually, and I'm sure people in the comments will list off even more, but like I said before, I'm actually more interested in exploring the importance of autistic headcanons today, because the thing is, most of the characters are related to from an autistic perspective were never intended to be viewed that way, and I know I'm not alone. Ask almost any autistic person and they'll be able to list off several more characters that they've headcanoned as autistic than there are actually autistic characters that they know, and that's honestly what helps us get attached to them. I've almost never related to a single character that was explicitly written to be autistic, but I've recently found more and more characters that I relate to due to traits that they share with me that are autistic in nature. So I'll go through a few of my own and a few that the online community has come up with, and then I'll try my best to ramble my way into some sort of conclusion. Before that though, I want to take a moment to recommend you check out Skulltrot's video on Donnie from Rise of the TMNT and Rowan Ellis's video on autistic representation, as they're both really good and well worth your time. Link in the description below. Tell them Wrighton sent you. They will not care, they don't know who I am. Also, before anyone actually is me, I will remind you that I'm not claiming any of these characters are artistic, just that they have traits that align with the autistic experience. So I actually want to start with some anime characters, since it was during the making of my anime recommendations video that I started to realise just how many characters I actually relate to through an autistic lens. If you've watched my other videos, you'll probably know that Frieren is one of the biggest for me, since I made a whole video on it, which I'm only just now realising it's very similar to this one. And since I don't want to just repeat myself over and over, I'm going to put the thing in the corner of the screen and link to it down below. Check it out if you're interested. Violet Evergarden also has Violet Evergarden, a former child soldier who takes a job as an auto-memories doll, writing letters for people who either don't know how to write themselves or don't know how to put their own feelings into words. And you know what? I really like this aspect of the show. Violet is shown to struggle with understanding people's emotions and doesn't even fully understand her own, and the overarching narrative is one of personal growth. She even has to apologise to a character for not understanding her feelings, and expresses just how much trouble she has with reading people, something I myself have had to do numerous times.
Did you tell all of them, Violet?
Tell them what?
Tell them about Amon!
Yes, I did.
Why would you do that?
I wasn't aware it was a secret, and everyone seemed very concerned about your well-being, so I felt it was necessary.
That's not a... You really don't understand other people's feelings, do you?
I am very sorry. I thought that I had finally come to understand feelings better, but people's feelings are quite complex and sensitive. Not everyone chooses to say exactly how they feel. They sometimes say the opposite or even lie about it. It's very difficult for me to accurately understand them. I'm afraid I don't always get it right. I am truly sorry.
I actually warn people I'm going to be spending a lot of time with, like friends or coworkers or etc., that I have trouble with social cues and noticing when something I've said is upsetting or inappropriate, and then I ask them to be sure to straight up tell me right away if I ever do or say something like that, so I can be more aware of it in the future. Violet slowly learns more and more thanks to the people who are willing to give her the extra help she needs, and I really like that. There's a theme of making an effort to understand people, and I honestly really love that the show doesn't just expect Violet to make the effort, but places a real importance on the other characters striving to understand her too. Another character is Mitsumi Iwakura from the anime Skip to Loafer. Mitsumi is painted as a very naive and trusting individual with her huge heart in the right place, but her head somewhere in the clouds. What I really like about the show is that despite being depicted as honestly kind of weird and out of place, her earnest zest for life and love for the people around her, and also her complete lack of boundaries, is what earns her friends and makes people love her. She's weird and quirky, and while she does struggle with reading and interpreting other people's emotions, her earnest nature makes her genuinely likable. She is at no point treated like a problem to be solved by the people around her, and I really think that's the best part. It's rare for an autistic coded character to be unambiguously appreciated, so it's rather refreshing to see it happen here. The final character from my own personal list is actually Nemona from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I think if I relate to one more anime girl in this way, I get a free sandwich or something. She's depicted as this weird, socially awkward kid who doesn't really read people or situations very well, but she's obviously putting in the effort to grow and improve. It also seems like battling is her special interest, as it's something that she clearly enjoys beyond the norm and is also something that she seems to constantly cycle back to. Hell, it actually seems like the fact that you alone are willing to battle her and engage with her is what really cements your friendship. You will never make an autistic person happier than when you show interest in and engage with their special interest. Being willing to meet us where we are is always appreciated, and a part of many autistic people's love language is sharing our special interests with you, as well as keeping track of the things that you like and sharing them with you too. If you have an autistic friend who sends you memes or random info or other little things that are related to something you really like, that's their subtle way of saying that they love you and you're on their mind. Okay, short side note, but have you ever looked up a list of good gifts for autistic people? They're pretty much always sensory items or fidget toys, and those are fine and all, but if you really want to make us happy, give us money or a gift card to a store you know we like so we can buy something related to our special interests. Or, and this is for those of you willing to go above and beyond, go with your autistic friend or sibling or whatever the relationship is and tell them to choose something with you so that you can show you're engaging with them and their interest. I promise you the joy they'll feel will be the best gift of all. Anyways, I love Nemona. She's my favourite rival character, and I enjoyed basically every single second of time with her. Dr. Brennan from Bones is also generally interpreted as being autistic, with Bones being not just her job but her special interest / savant thing. The show also repeatedly points out, especially in the early seasons, that she appears too detached from other people and appears to lack empathy. But the truth is that she's actually incredibly empathetic and has a strong sense of justice. She just struggles to express herself the way that other people do. In the season 1 episode, The Girl in the Fridge, a major source of conflict actually centers on her inability to be emotionally open, and people keep pressing her with the opposing lawyer villainizing her by portraying her as an unfeeling robot, and her own team pushing her until she finally breaks and gives them what they want. But it's very clear that being forced to step out of her emotional comfort zone makes her incredibly upset.
Dr. Brennan, your parents disappeared when you were 15, and no one's ever found out what happened to them, isn't that correct?
Please answer the question, Dr. Brennan.
That's correct.
It must be very painful. Is it fair to say that you've been trying to solve the mystery of their loss your whole life?
Do I want answers? Yes. As to how that has affected my behavior, which I assume is what you're trolling for, I don't put much stock in psychology.
Is that why you wrap yourself up in techno-speak? So you don't have to feel how these victims remind you of your own parents?
How I feel doesn't matter. My job doesn't depend on it.
But it's informed by it. Or are you as cold and unfeeling as you seem?
I see a face on every skull. I can look at their bones and tell you how they walked, where they hurt. Maggie Schilling is real to me. The pain she suffered was real. Her hip was being eaten away by infection from lying on her side. Sure, like Dr. Stiers said, the disease could contribute to that if you take it out of context. But you can't break Maggie Schilling down into little pieces. She was a whole person who fought to free herself. Her wrists were broken from struggling against the handcuffs. The bones in her ankles were ground together because her feet were tied, and her side, her hip, and her shoulder were being eaten away by infection. And the more she struggled, the more pain she was in, so they gave her those drugs to keep her quiet. They gave her so much it killed her. These facts can't be ignored or dismissed because you think I'm boring or obnoxious, because I don't matter. What I feel doesn't matter. Only she matters. Only Maggie.
Hell, the director even says this outright.
You have many skills, Temperance. Not one of them includes communicating with the average person on the street, which is exactly what juries are made of.
She really does come across as very autistic, though as far as I can recall, the show never really explores this. Peridot of Steven Universe is also often read as being autistic, and I can kind of see it, given her tendency to take things literally and her obsession with camp painting hearts. I didn't really see it until someone else pointed it out, though that says more about my attention span than anything else. Finally, I want to take a moment to talk about Dungeon Meshi, or as it's known in some online spaces, oops, all autistics. If you're a fan of the show and you've been on the internet for 5 minutes, you've probably seen the overwhelming number of people referring to Laios as autistic, including his own voice actor. He's kind of become the poster child for autistic representation, and I find it utterly hilarious. I don't think I even really need to explain it, since he kind of shares the reasoning with all the other characters on the list combined. But what's really funny is that, depending on how you look at it, each of the main characters has some form of autism, and a lot of their interpersonal issues come from their lack of autistic compatibility. Fun fact, if two different autistic people have conflicting autistic tendencies, they will become enemies for life. And that's actually why I don't get along with my own brother very well. He doesn't do anything specifically wrong that other people could pinpoint, but his issues aggravate my own, and he ends up pissing me off almost constantly, which is honestly through no real fault of his own. Chillshock cannot express himself properly to save his life. Marcel's food hang-ups are some of the most overtly hilarious and overdramatic things in the fucking world. And Senshi seems explicitly compatible with Laios in that destined to be best friend thanks to our mental issues kind of way that I've made a few friends through. The whole party is just one big mess made up of smaller messes, and it's great. You know what? I think I will make a Dungeon Meshi video on its own, and I'll explore the party dynamic there more, so keep an eye out for that in the future. You know, it's funny, people almost never just add in an autistic character to a story. There's always this need for fanfare. The show is either entirely about the character's autism, or the lone episode they're in is. And there's almost never any autistic character added with it just like, hi, I'm Jimothy, and Jimothy is just allowed to be autistic without it being a whole thing. And while I obviously can't speak for everyone, I kind of want that. I'd really like there to be an autistic character that's just allowed to exist normally without needing to have their autism be their main character trait. And I think that's why we grow so attached to these characters that simply feel autistic and not the ones that are explicitly written as such, because they feel more normal. They feel more like us, because the thing about being autistic is that it is normal for us. It's just sort of treated as this hugely big deal by other people. And yeah, it can be a big deal sometimes, but most of the time, it's just us being us. They feel like they still belong in their world and are just allowed to be weird and autistic without the world needing to stop and make a big deal out of it. Because, well, that's what we want for ourselves, I think. We want to be allowed to exist and be accepted for our weirdness. These characters, strange as it is, make us feel more seen, and I really do hope more canonically autistic characters will be written that way. That they'll be acknowledged as autistic, but allowed to simply exist in their stories without it having to be their everything. Because it's not our everything. It's just the part of us that doesn't really sync up with everyone else, and it doesn't need to be treated like a problem to be fixed, because we're not. Autistic people aren't broken or missing pieces or incomplete. We're just people, and we want to feel seen, just like everyone else. Thanks for watching, guys. Why don't you comment down below your favourite autistic headcanon, and have a great April, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.